All right. Welcome to the second Titans Midweek Report at paulkaharski.com. I'm Sammy Mamo, a friend of Paul's and Titans fan. We are here to talk about, the Titans. Brian Callahan, coming off a shutout, was not very amenable to good questions by you on Sunday. Was a little bit better on Monday. And then today comes out and it just messes with my mind, man, because it left me thinking, how's a guy who's clearly quite competent, like knows football, can explain things, appears to be a good teacher. How can he put out such an awful product on Sundays?
Yeah, I mean, he is good at explaining things, and I think that would translate to being a good teacher. And I thought he's, Monday talked about hopelessness, and that ignited him a little bit. I thought he perked up. He's been very down, understandably, but I think maybe too tangibly. And he said, look, I don't feel a sense of hopelessness. I certainly hope there isn't one. And I feel like, the payoff when you turn it around and get things going is the most amazing feeling there is. And I've been around that. Now, I know most of us are not expecting that to come, but it's his job and it's his disposition to still believe in it. And so, take from that what you will. Today, some detailed conversation about footwork from Cam Ward and young quarterback. Quarterback growth isn't linear. This footwork isn't linear, but he talked about, they don't work on it at 7-on-7. They don't work on it in high school. You don't get the kind of work on it in college, and it's not as important there as it is here. It's very precise stuff tied to routes, and Cam has been good at it at some points and not so good at other points. It's a constant work in progress. And even veteran quarterbacks who are very successful continue to work on it. He said it's kind of like a golf swing that you're always trying to refine. You never really have it. And so
It's never
a lot
perfect.
of work. Yeah, a lot of work for Cam Ward to do there. I did talk to Brandon Allen a little bit about it, and he was very good. He said you get that back foot hits on 3 steps, and that route's got to be open. If it's not, you take a hitch, and that route's got to be open. If not, you take a second hitch, and that route's got to be open. And if it's not, you're going to your check down or you're running. And it's that precise. You can't wait on anything or it throws the whole damn thing off. And I think we've seen examples of that with Cam. And then, like on the interception where he was intended for Io Manor in Houston, I don't think there's any reason for him to both be dropping that low sidearm and to be off both feet when he's on the move. And he's clearly at his best on the move. I expect the Titans to put him on the move a lot this weekend in Arizona. But he's got time there on the move to set himself up, to throw it more, at least 3 quarters, and to not put it behind Io Manor where he had no real chance to catch it. He's got to be more accurate. It's 16 incompletions. Only 3 of those were throwaways. He was a big part of the problem in this game.
Yeah, no doubt about it. Nick Holtz had caught some flack on social media for an answer he had kind of about what his role is and what he does now, with Hardigree taking over play calling duties, even though he never had those duties to begin with. And I was just kind of wondering your thoughts on all of that and kind of what maybe an explainer on what Nick Holtz does. He talked about a little bit being in meetings and installs and that, but from you.
Yeah, I mean, he's got stuff to do. Brian Callahan is not the offensive coordinator, even when he was the play caller. He's the head coach, and he needs to be moving around. And as he's moving around, Nick Holtz is in charge of all of the offensive stuff. Obviously the offense isn't good. And so people, find that laughable or make fun of that. And, it's not the most prestigious job to be offensive coordinator for a head coach who calls offensive plays or in an offense where the quarterback coach is calling offensive plays. And Brian Callahan isn't working out, but Brian Callahan had this job under Zach Taylor, and worked himself into being a prime candidate for head coaching positions for a couple of cycles and got the Titans job. Now we can hindsight it and say it wasn't a good hire, but when he came in, a lot of people thought it was an excellent hire. And I don't think our hindsight, like, I don't question the Titans hire. It's turned out to be a bad hire, but at the time it looked like a fine hire. There are a lot of offensive coordinators for play calling head coaches who turn out to be good prospective head coaches. Nick Holtz is one of
them. Unfortunately for all of Titans fans. That takes me to Bones. Bones had himself a day answering some questions and won a lot of fans. He was just absolutely fantastic. His unit has turned it around fantastically. I think it was a question that you asked him that sparked all of that answer and talking about, the team needing to play complementary in all three phases and all that. And what can you tell us about Bones, man?
He's a really interesting guy, obviously from a coaching family. His dad won Super Bowls, but I just basically said, like, you're new here. You inherited a bad unit and you've turned things around in a hurry. What can you tell us about how you've done that while we're watching an offense and defense that have been in place for a year plus now, who've not been able to do it? And he went a little further talking about offense and defense than most special teams coaches would, which I respect, instead of saying, oh, that's not my deal. He talked like a guy who's been around the league. And a lot of us made fun of, said, boy, the Titans should have gotten some Thursday night games because they practiced really well on Thursday and it didn't translate to Sunday. But he talked about the importance of, and he said he's been with some teams that didn't practice well and played well on Sunday, but he talked about the importance of continuing to practice well, being confident that that's going to turn out to have meaning in the long run, maintaining the faith. And Teron Davenport, it was funny afterwards. He said, if I worked in this building, I'd go talk to Bones, 10 minutes with that guy and you come out feeling a lot better about the Titans' hopes and the direction of this franchise. I suggested he set up office hours for other coaches and for players and people connected to the team to pass through. Probably would work pretty well if he had the time.
I don't doubt it. It got me kind of thinking, like, I don't know. If the Titans make a move in season, I would have to think he would have to be a favorite for interim. But also, like, we've seen it work for, a little different situation. But Harbaugh in Baltimore was a special teams coordinator. Like, it's not unprecedented for that. I mean, he's worked with a lot of coaches, could probably assemble an interesting staff. I don't know.
Yeah, I would think
for being the team that hires a special teams coordinator to be head coach. Yes.
Yeah, I mean, you could get mocked for anything the Titans do. I think I would think he'd be the leader for interim. A lot of it depends on Renee Stewart, who a former Titans defensive back, who's his assistant special teams coach. So I think part of it is, could the assistant special teams coach handle special teams? If the answer is no there, then it would be hard to take Bones and make him the head coach because he wouldn't have enough time probably to lead special teams. I think he's an interesting head coaching candidate. I would interview him, but there's some danger to hiring a guy as your head coach from the staff of the guy you're firing, obviously. See the Cowboys and Brian Schottenheimer. But I'd put him on the list. And I'd certainly encourage the guy that I do hire to give every consideration to keeping him as a special teams coordinator.
God, please. I can't take more bad special teams. Denard Wilson talked a little bit about turning the thinking off for the defense to help them not lose their edge or, lose it in the fourth quarters, as they've been keeping it close to a lot of fourth quarters, but then losing it. Do you think it's that simple?
I don't know if simplifying it is the simple answer. And if it is, did it take a quarter of the season to figure that out? I wish it would have arrived quicker. But look, I have heard more than one person say that things are overly complicated. And it doesn't seem to me that they have enough pieces to do complicated stuff, or, maybe that thinking's backwards. Maybe when you don't have that much talent, you need to complicate things up. And that was the thinking. Hey, we don't have a lot of pieces. We've got to do a whole bunch of stuff in order to be effective. And they did too much, and now they need to pull back. Yeah. Arden Key played better, which is encouraging, because Arden Key is an energy guy, and you get something out of an energy guy. That's good. And Arden Key plays in spurts. So generally, if Arden Key had one good game, you expect a couple more good games, because he gets on a heater. That was not like he played terrific, but he did some things. They've been moving guys on the defensive line around. Draymond Jones inside. So maybe,
Draymond Jones has been such a disappointment to me.
Really hasn't done.
I mean, absolutely nothing. I mean, even more than Femi, really, in terms of disappointment, because at least Femi's young, and I don't know. That's a bad one.
Yeah, some really zero spots. I mean, we expected the pass rush an edge pass rush to do nothing, and it's living up to those expectations. There are no surprises.
Gotta love when we're right. When we're right.
It's a one-man pass rush with Jeffrey Simmons, and you really have to respect what Simmons is doing. I think it.
I need to go back on him. I'm rough on him.
I need to go back.
Fantastic.
I need to go back and look at some of the film of the best play of Jeff Simmons' career. But I feel pretty comfortable saying this matches it. I don't know if it surpasses it, but this feels like the best version of Jeff Simmons. It's a little interesting, because he was at least 25 pounds heavier the last time he was playing this caliber. So I think if you put side-by-side film up, it would feel a little bit like looking at a different guy. And Drew Beatty, who does film study at paulkuharsky.com, has a Jeff Simmons file up today. So if you want to see the work that Jeffrey Simmons is doing right now, head to paulkuharsky.com and check out that file. It's some impressive stuff. And I will say his leadership is the best it's ever been. Also, I'm not eating crow on him, because I think he's changed.
No,
but I respect the fact that he has made some intentional changes, and I wouldn't have viewed those things as possible. The one last thing I'd like him to tinker with is he still has this tendency, when a team runs on the Titans, he'll say, well, it was 2 or 3 big runs, and he's dismissive of the big runs as part of the whole. Those contribute to the run average against. That's how the average gets big. A couple big runs make the average big. I'd like him to come to terms with that. Outside of that, I can't nitpick Jeff Simmons in the ways that I have in the past, and props to him.
There we go. And yes, Beatty's been doing great work. I want to talk about Blake Bedingfield from his piece on Monday. He had a quote: "When I watch the tape, I don't see a team that isn't playing hard. I just see a team that is completely outmatched from a personnel standpoint. Even against the 0-3 Houston Texans, the Titans have less talent. The effort is good, but the quality of play is not." And so I go back to Callahan with this, and I just say, if even against one of the other 4 or 5 worst teams in the league at the moment, there is such a clear talent gap. And I get that Callahan hasn't helped himself with certain play calling or situational awareness things this season specifically. But if it's that bad, how do we know we're getting an honest evaluation of anyone or anything?
It's a great question. And I asked Blake to write particularly a segment of his Monday column, Blake Bedingfield, who scouted for the Titans for 19 years. A big reason Derrick Henry wound up being a Tennessee Titan. Not perfect by any means, but a guy who gives us a scout's eye. I asked him to tell me what he thought, to tell us what he thought about effort. Because it's hard for us to look at 11 guys through a game and assess the effort, I think. And a lot of fans, when the team plays poorly, automatically turn on or hit the button that says, this team isn't playing for Callahan, the effort is poor and everything. And I'm glad you bring that quote to the table. He said that effort is not the thing. The talent is the thing. And the talent is a thing. And we've been saying the talent's a thing for a long time. And Robinson's drafts for the last 3 years were horrible. Rand Carthon didn't do much to fix anything. We're just seeing the beginning of Borgonzi. How long can the talent be an issue? Apparently forever, right? But I hate to go back to Vrabel, but Vrabel's our most recent comparison. And at the end, Mike Vrabel wasn't doing it anymore. He wasn't squeezing wins out of bad talent. But over the course of his career, even his best teams were not supremely talented, right? And he took a team to the AFC Championship that was not supremely talented. He took a team to the number 1 seed in the AFC that wasn't supremely talented. And then some of his teams that were bad, he won some games that at the end, you said, that was a heck of a coaching job. And I think in Brian Callahan's case, you've got to be able to periodically compete well, at least, if not win a game where you say, hey, that wasn't the more talented team that won, but they found a way. They meshed together a way. The plan was really good and the execution was really good, and they found a way. We see games like that around the NFL every weekend, but we have not seen that from the Tennessee Titans. And that, to me, is one of the major indictments of Brian Callahan. No, he does not have a lot to work with, but he and his staff are charged with making the most of what they have to work with. And I think there isn't a lot more to be made, Sam, of what they've had over 1 season and 4 games, but there's more than what we've seen.
Sure. That's fair. I don't disagree in any sense. It's just like, if we're this much worse than even the worst teams, what kind of miracle does he need to pull off for it to, where you keep it 6-0 to the 4th? You take the Broncos down pretty much to the, is that him? Is that the best these guys can do?
I don't think so. Do you think that's the best they can do? 6-6 into the 4th and a good Thursday practice?
And if Ridley would catch the ball in some of those games, that's
do you
another
think the
thing
Texans are that much better than the Titans,
I don't.
personnel-wise?
No.
The Texans also have a horseshit offensive line, right?
Yes,
and
do.
The Titans got 2 sacks, and we didn't expect anything better. I'm at a point right now, and I've said this in multiple places. I've seen the worst versions of the Titans. The Wisenhunt Titans were terrible.
Don't remind me.
Vrabel's last year was bad.
Mm-hmm.
But I would go to the stadium for those games, and some weeks you knew they were going to get killed by a good team. But you would think, there's a chance today that the Titans find a way to win. And I thought that John Glennon. Yeah, John Glennon reminded me, I went into the Colts game a couple weeks ago, and I thought, I don't think the Colts are nearly as good as they played in the first 2 weeks. I rated them, the second year in a row. I thought they'd be the fourth place team in the division, and the Titans would be 3rd. And I thought there was a chance in that game. And clearly there was not a chance.
None at all.
I don't envision myself walking into an NFL stadium for the rest of the year imagining that the Titans have even a chance, not picking them to win, imagining that they have a chance. That's how bad I think this football team is.
Yeah. Yeah. No, it's.
You just hit mute or something, Sammy. Yeah, you hit mute. Your button is pushed.
Look at that. I'm some kind
of. There you go. The guy's not that technologically savvy yet.
There was a lot of talk today, both from Callahan and a little bit from Cam, about the RPO. Not something we've seen a ton of. It has come up over the years, but do you see that being really incorporated? And is that maybe something for Tajay? Because there was some talk about Tajay today too.
They always say that they have it when you ask them about something like the RPO, but I don't envision it getting featured. I think it's a mistake not to use it more. I think it's a mistake not to use everything. And he clearly had collegiate success with it. They should be mirroring Miami more and doing those things. What I do expect this week is for them to do some things on the move. I mean, they need his best stuff has been off script, and the way you
100%.
Kind of pretend to be off script when you're on script is to put him on the move. He said it kind of gives the offensive line a play off. He didn't really mean that, but a different kind of play. He's clearly comfortable throwing on the move. Io Manor in particular has done some really nice work on the move. And I just think it'd be healthy. Now, we were talking on Robbie and Rexroad, like it seems to be a feeling. Rexroad thought this, like it feels like they feel like when they put him on the move, they're restricting his development because they want him to mature as a pocket passer. Well, I think screw that. And
find a happy medium, right?
Right. There's still going to be plenty of plays where he's in the pocket, but don't take away those plays. And particularly Cam has talked about when we cross the 50, things really stall out. So when you cross the 50, let's get inventive here. I asked Hardigree about presetting to aggressive going into the game. And he kind of poo-pooed that, like, well, that's not, not if it's the game plan. Well, make it the game plan to preset to aggressive. What do you got to lose?
I did like that he was honest. On the move. I did like he was honest and like saying he regretted the run on 3rd and 12. Like you don't often hear that.
Yeah, and the trick plays, like I know what he's going for there, but they seem both. I mean, obviously, failed trick plays stall things, but they were kind of going at that time. And then when I asked him about that, he kind of like shrugged and nodded, like, "Yeah, we were going, and those plays really killed us."
Maybe a little bit of grace, maybe hopefully a sign if he can at least recognize that we'll get better as we go. JJ Watt had some interesting thoughts about PFF and their grades and their scoring. I was wondering if you have an opinion about this.
Yeah, well, he basically said, screw PFF. And he doesn't like PFF at all. And look, I try not to rely on PFF much. I use it once in a while for context and once in a while to stack particularly offensive linemen who you don't have much information on and you need something that's the thing you have. But the thing that bothers me about what JJ Watt said, and in the time I covered him, I had a great relationship with JJ Watt, and he even got back to me once after that when we were talking about the debate about the Texans and the Titans uniforms. And DeAndre Hopkins had a picture out of him in the Titans light blue. And I ended up DMing with Watt. And I think his broadcast thing was very good. The thing about it is you always tell everybody PFF doesn't know the assignments, and they don't. How about you tell us a little bit about the assignments? Like the alternative is that the assignments remain this military grade secret. All right. And some guys are better than others. I'm not much of a film guy, but some guys who are film guys will take a certain play into the locker room, and some players are more willing than others to talk about what happened, as I show you this on my iPhone. Other guys are not. But Steve Jackson, the Titans secondary coach, I always respect, because when he was a player, and that group of players that he was with, Darrell Lewis, Samari Roll at the very beginning, Blaine Bishop, Marcus Robertson, those guys were very concerned about the wrong guy in that secondary getting pinned with the blame. And so there were more than one occasion where I would say, I would go to a guy to get his account of his blame for a play, and another guy in that secondary would say, no, that was on me. Overhearing it. Step forward. Steve Jackson did it on multiple occasions. Major props for that. Doesn't happen.
Accountability.
Right? So if you don't like the PFF scoring, then when I come around or somebody comes around to try to get to the bottom of a play, account, raise your hand and say, hey, that was my bad. And here's who was responsible for what. If you want to keep that a secret, then PFF is going to continue to rise, whether they know the assignments or not. Yeah. So you can't badmouth it and be quiet at the same time.
I agree. It's always been a useful tool to a certain degree, right? When you understand it has flaws. I wouldn't say it's useless. But it also shouldn't be a Bible for people, right? It gets things wrong. But it's hard. And it's wild because in today's world, you have got so many people that love this stuff. It's surprising that it still can be so hard to do that. But accountability isn't you just think about it in general, and there aren't many people that are going to be jumping up to say, no, that was my mistake.
This generation, and people crave this information so much. I'll take it a little step further. I saw Peyton on the Manning cast saying this. He didn't want targets to be a stat because he says, how do you know who I'm targeting? Well, there's an easy solution to this. After the game, when you do your film review, teams do their own tackles. Tackle stats come largely, there are two sets of tackle stats. Press box tackle stats, but then if you look at a team's defensive stats that they put out, those are coaching tackle stats. Well, if you don't like the target stats that the league puts out, you tell us who was targeted. Easy solution, Peyton. These target stats can be as accurate as you want them to be. But you can't keep it a secret who the target was because we're watching balls thrown towards guys. So either PFF or either the league's going to name the targets or you are. Choose.
Pick one. Yeah. S or get off the P.
Yeah.
All right, Paul. What else you got coming up the rest of this week at paulkaharski.com?
Well, Mike Herndon tomorrow will have a piece on Cedric Gray, who played a phenomenal game in Houston. Three guys were not the problem in Houston. Jeffrey Simmons, Tony Pollard, to me, and Cedric Gray for sure. What's that say about Cedric Gray? Where is he 4 games into being the Titans' second starting inside linebacker, and where is he heading? Mike Herndon, always great on stuff like that. Friday, I will do the Paul Kuharsky podcast live from Edley's in 12 South. If anybody wants to come out and join me for lunch, they open at 11 and I will eat at 11:30. And I might do something on Cam's footwork. I might do something on Cam on the move, and I really would like to write something about meeting Greg Nettles, my all-time favorite athlete, and I talked to Keith Bullock and Derek Mason about what it's like to hear from people so often how you were their boyhood hero, and people searching for ways to express that. Because I was
just about to say,
I was like, I'm going to be totally
all-time favorites.
I'm going to be totally original with Greg Nettles, and it's going to feel different to him and everything. And then I walked away and I was like, I said the same thing to him that everybody else says. I wonder if that's a bore to him. And so I kind of explored it with Bullock and Mason. So any or all or some of that coming at paulkuharsky.com. You need to join, be a member, $7.50 a month. It's the price of a cup of coffee, and it's less than a cocktail in Nashville, Tennessee. I can tell you that. You get everything I write. You get Blake Bedingfield's scouting review of every game. You get Drew Beatty's film review. Jeff Simmons up now today. You get Mike Herndon's very smart column. And you get Braden Gall looking ahead at the Titans draft. Yeah, it's early to talk about, but guess what? They're going to have themselves a high pick, and it's time to start familiarizing yourself with the people who might be wearing light blue next year. And then, of course, this Titans midweek report, which is taken off with Sam, who's doing a great job.
Thanks. See you guys next week.
Don't block the box. Be sure to lock your locks. Go Yanks. That's what we're off to. We'll see you soon. Thanks, everybody.